Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MOWAKing Chronicles. I'm your host, Andy, better known as the MOWAKing. This podcast has been a long time coming, and I'm so grateful that you're here and you're tuning in. This is the very first episode of the MOWAKing Chronicles. In today's episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and the reason why I decided to start this podcast. I'm going to give you a glimpse of what future episodes and what future content is going to be about. So once again, welcome and thank you for taking this journey with me. So a little bit about myself. Like I said, my name is Andy. I'm more affectionately known as the MOWAKing, and I'm from Alabama. Great state. Roll Tide Roll. And I'm also a member of the MOWA band of Choctaw Indians. MOWA is spelled M-O-W-A, and it stands for the two counties that our tribe is located in Alabama. The M and the O is from Mobile County, and the W-A stands for Washington County, which is just right above Mobile County. Our tribe is a state-recognized tribe. It got recognized in 1979, and we're fighting for federal recognition. I hope in future episodes I can discuss what that topic is about and the process of going through federal recognition. The actual term MOWAKing come from a nickname from several friends of mine. Started out kind of as a joke, but then I kind of just took the name and really run with it. I got known for it doing my Snapchat stuff and really just took it as a symbol to mean pride in my heritage. Stood for leadership, resilience, and it really brought to me community. Now, a little bit about my family. I've been married for over 10 years to my rock, my best friend, Kristen. Together, we have a little boy named Grant, and he is a handful. He is a rough little joker. No one prepares you for being a parent. There's really no manuals. There's books and stuff that people and psychologists can really tell you about stuff, but until you dive into being a parent, there's no guide. And I've come to know that parenthood is, again, not an easy task. It takes a lot. It takes patience, it takes resilience, and it takes love above all at its core. And that's the thing I kind of see being a father and seeing Grant. It's the small things that when he's like watching his shows like Paw Patrol, Team Spidey, when I see him playing with other kids around, or even just the small stuff that he says, and I think, how in the world did he say that? Where did he hear that from? A prime example was, I asked him if he wanted to go see my mom and dad, and I told him, say, Grant Bird, you want to go see your nanny and pop? And he paused a minute, he looked at me, he put his little finger on his chin, and said, actually, yes, I want to go see my nanny. And I'm thinking to myself, where in the world did he hear actually from? It makes each moment with him just bring something new and exciting every day. It kind of goes back to how I grew up, growing up in the South in Alabama. I was taught that good manners and common sense was a must-have. Our parents didn't play about not respecting others, but now our mom and dad taught us a lot about integrity, hard work. All of it was really grounded in faith. I also see that in my community as well. So our tribe is a very tight-knit tribe. Our community is a tight-knit community. And that same set of values that my mom and dad taught me, I see a lot in our community. You know, whether someone is coming together to support somebody that's having financial troubles or going through a difficult time, or how a community comes together to support a family at a funeral and all, that's been some of the amazing support I've seen in our community, just how we come together to help someone. Another example would be like, we call them benefits around here. And so what that basically is just a plate sale where people will donate food to sell to the community to help a person that may be going through medical bills, expenses, any kind of thing like that. Or vice versa, if they really didn't have a lot of money to bury somebody, they will often have a benefit to provide for that family, to help that family out. And I've just learned to love that part of our community, how we've come together. Our community may not always agree on the same things, or we may have different approaches to how we handle certain situations, but I believe that core belief in the tribe, those core values, all stays the same. Mainly, it's also grounded by faith. To me, I think faith is a cornerstone. It really determines who I am, how my mom and dad raised my brother and I. I grew up going to church and believing in God, and again, like I said, that was part of being in the South. Being in this part of the Bible Belt, you were taught to go to church. And I really thank my mom and dad for having that courage to take us to church on the regular. Part of that was several years ago, me and Kristen decided to join the Catholic Church. And that was a big change for us. It wasn't just a change in beliefs. It really transformed how we saw our lives, our marriage, and how our future. And in going through that process, we really rediscovered our faith. And it was the things that we saw at the Catholic Church that we liked. And, you know, before we started going to the Catholic Church, we didn't hardly know nothing about the Catholic faith. You know, we had kind of had this, I guess, misperception from movies, TV shows, and what we've heard from other people. But as most people do, they'll start doing research and trying to ask those questions. And so we slowly started going to find that belief in it and find why it worked for us. It was the things that the Catholic Church has, such as attending the Mass, the purpose of the sacraments, understanding things like the rosary, communion. And I think that was a big part of why we decided to go to the Catholic Church. Whenever we travel or do vacation, it's good that we could go to another Catholic church because the Mass is technically the same wherever you go. So we've attended Mass down in Florida, in Georgia, and other parts of the state, and we've realized that it's the exact same Mass. And so that was a real big part of us going on that journey. While we started attending that church, then our son Grant was born. And it really just helped solidify our faith journey, and it just kind of built on that foundation that we established in going to that and finding faith in God. Also, I'd like to talk in future episodes about how we really went on that journey, what that process was like. And at the same time, I want to hear from you guys to see about what other kind of journeys you're on. If you're having that kind of faith struggle, or if you not necessarily go to the Catholic Church, but you go to this church or that church, and why you like that church, I'd love to hear from you. So that's a little bit about my family, my faith. Now, where do I come from other than being from Alabama? What did I do? What kind of career did I have? First thing I want to say, about 10, 15 years ago, I started doing public safety stuff. In 2007, when I was about 17, 18 years old, I started volunteering at my local fire department. This fire department is a all-volunteer fire department, and that was kind of the start. It was the kickoff to my public safety career, so to speak. And I enjoyed that. I thought, as a 17, 18-year-old kid then, man, this was really cool. I saw the fire trucks. I seen them wear the gear, and they go in, they help people when somebody. And that's really what initially started, because I felt that sense of purpose. So being on the fire department, I saw a lot of things and got to experience a few things there, such as responding to a house fire, responding to brush fires, medical calls, service calls. And so I'll give you an example. So a medical call, somebody would be sick. They would be suffering from a heart attack. Where we live at, since we're not a city, we're more rural, the fire department is usually the first to respond to that call and provide first aid. And sometimes, depending on the situation, such as like somebody having a heart attack, a lot of times we're the first one there doing CPR until the ambulance comes. or being the first onto a house fire or somebody's home trailer catching on fire or vehicle catching on fire, we would be there. Being on the volunteer fire department, we didn't get paid 1 red cent because it was an all volunteer. We done the same job essentially as a paid fire department, but we just done it to help our community. So it goes back to that whole thing of helping the tribe and helping the community. That's why I liked it myself, was to get out there and to help people. And as I got older doing the fire department stuff, I realized I wanted to actually make a career of that. I was really torn. I was torn on what I wanted to do, so to speak, that I think I wanted to do firefighting full time, but then I had this kind of calling, I thought, to do the police department stuff. Kind of done a couple ride-alongs with a good buddy of mine that was in it full time, and in 2013, I decided to make that change. I went and got hired on by a police department and went to the police academy in 2014, got my certification, and going to the academy was nothing that really prepared me for it. Essentially, it's like going to boot camp, so to speak, for the military, but on the police side, because you had to be taught discipline. We had to do physical training, what we call PT. We had to learn about the law, and that was important to me, and it helped me because then I decided to go to college and further my career by doing criminal justice. So I went to the police academy. At the same time, I was going to college and doing some online classes, got certified, and got out on the street. And being in the police department really was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I got to see things that I never thought I would see and be a part of some good organizations. I also got to meet some really, really good men and women working in law enforcement and policing. I got to meet a few lifelong friends, good close friends that I still call and talk to this day. And then doing the job too, I also got to see a lot of dealing with the public. I got to see not only the best in people, but the worst in people. And I say that when you get into the field and you responding to a call, a lot of people had that conception that what they see on a TV show or a movie, and it's nothing, so to speak, like it. Yes, there's stuff happens such as like car chases and the unfortunate part, like gunfights. And that was one thing you, as an officer, when you get in that, that's the last thing you really want, because a lot of people see it as being on TV and thinking, oh, that's cool, do that. But in the reality of it is we putting a lot of people's lives at risk, and we put ours on the line doing that job. And it's a very critical field. Being in law enforcement, public safety sector, to me, I think is one of the toughest fields to be in, probably next to the military. I know there's people out there that's working construction and electrical work, doing these very high-risk jobs. I just think public safety and law enforcement especially is up there with them as far as how dangerous it is and what the job entails. There's not really a manual to prepare you to see, because every call is different. And I say that you don't go and deal with that same person. You may deal with them like 1 or 2 times if it's like a regular, say it's a drunk person that you deal with, but it could be that time where that person decides he's not going to jail, and that winds up costing officers, and eventually it could lead to an officer dying or getting seriously hurt. And that was the things that we had to look out for. Also, law enforcement has changed dramatically in the last 5 to 7 years. You've had a lot of things go on with these high-profile shootings that's went on, and then you had the media and social media, had Facebook, to get on there and start bashing about law enforcement and saying that because that one officer or that one bad officer, all of them is bad. We need to just completely defund them. But I think it takes away from a lot of the good that a lot of good men and women, I think, such as in all professions, you're going to have good and bad employees. You're going to have bad fast food workers, restaurant workers. You're going to have bad doctors, nurses, but law enforcement, public safety is always at that front and center because of how the public and the media perceives them every day. So when you have one of those high-profile cases where an officer had to make a split decision or an officer did do the wrong, I'm a firm believer if the officer is 100% in the wrong, yes, prosecute that person. The same that you would do to a doctor that was prescribing chemicals and drugs and stuff to someone, knowing the harmful effects of it. But it's just not portrayed in the media. Being in that career field, and you see a lot of the good men and women, they're having to struggle with it. And I've seen a lot of them kind of suffer from PTSD. When people talk about PTSD, they often think of the military and the combat experiences. Absolutely love our military. Have all the respect in the world for military. Stand firmly for our military. But I think it needs to be addressed that law enforcement, in particular, firefighters, EMS workers, it needs to be programs and stuff out there really more available and push for those officers, firefighters, EMS workers, that in order to weed out, you need to have a little bit better standards, but you need to compensate them, because when people get into that line of work, you don't do it for the money. You do it for that sense of purpose. And as time went on, as long as I stayed in law enforcement, I kind of saw those negative perceptions. And it's tough when you're going to a funeral for a fallen police officer because he was shot and killed. And yeah, you may see a maybe 25, 30-second news article of it, or one of the rare occasions that they may live stream the funeral. But I've been to those funerals. I've spoke to those families that have lost loved ones when they can't talk to those people anymore. I've went to good friends of mine that died in law enforcement, and it's tough. It's tough, just like dealing with someone in the military, because it was our fellow brother or sister that was dead or got killed. But I believe there's going to be hope in it. I think stuff will eventually change for it. And as I went along my career, and I actually found a good opportunity outside of law enforcement, and I was really, really hesitant to take that shot because I had dedicated so much of my life to law enforcement, public safety aspect. I started with the fire department, and then I eventually got to the police department. I went to college, got my degree. Then I was doing the career for a while. But when an opportunity like that came about, I just really couldn't pass it up. It was just a lot of deciding factors for me personally dealing with it. So one thing was like I said, the financial stability of it. I looked at that. I looked at where the state of law enforcement was at the time. And Grant was born in 2021. When I saw him and wanted him to grow up, that made me really reconsider what I wanted to do for my future, and really had him and Kristen at the forefront. Kristen and I had been married, several years, and I know it was tough on her being a police officer's wife, that she dreaded probably getting a phone call or something that I got killed or was hurt and all. And thank God she stood by me through thick and thin, and I'm so grateful that she stood by me, because that was something that I really wanted to do. But when I made that decision to leave, I'd done a lot of praying about it, discussing and talking about it. And I say when I did leave, it was the hardest, easiest, and toughest decisions that I made. But you're probably thinking, Why do you say it's the hardest and the easiest? Yeah, I like the career. I said that because I didn't mind doing it. I enjoyed my job of being in law enforcement. I didn't mind being out there helping people because I was the one out there working these night shifts, working 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, patrolling the streets while people were at home or going out and enjoying families. I missed a lot of family functions doing that particular job. I missed weddings, vacations, fun, good times with folks. I don't regret none of that because I enjoy doing that. I felt a sense of calling and purpose because the stuff that never really got talked about, the good things. One particular time there was a guy that wrecked his car. Car was catching on fire, and I pulled the guy from the car while it was burning. And those are some of the things that I enjoy, that I took a sense of pride to protect and serve. I took that oath. When I went to the academy and were getting certified, every day we had to speak our oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, to do for law enforcement. When we were in the academy and as I was going through the career, patrolling, going to court, I often called myself thinking about a poem that I listened to Paul Harvey. He said a lot of different things, but one that stuck out, it was called Policeman. And some of the things, I have it right here, said, "What is a policeman made of? He of all men is once the most needed and the most wanted. He's a strangely nameless creature who is sir to his face and fuzz or worse to his back. He must be such a diplomat that he can settle differences between individuals so that each think he will won. But if he's neat, he's conceited. If he's careless, he's a bum. If he's pleasant, he's flirting. If he's not, he's a grouch. If he hurries, he's careless. If he's deliberate, he's lazy. He must be the first to an accident and infallible with a diagnosis. He must be able to start breathing, stop bleeding, tie splints, and above all, make sure the victim goes home without a limp or expect to be sued." The final little thing it says, "A police officer must know every gun, draw on the run, and hit where it doesn't hurt. He must be able to whip men twice his size, half his age, without damaging his uniform and without being brutal. But if you hit him, he's a coward. If he hits you, he's a bully. He must, from a single strand of hair, be able to describe the crime, the weapon, and the criminal, and tell you where the criminal is hiding. The policeman must be a minister, a social worker, a diplomat, a tough guy, and a gentleman." And the most important thing at the end, he says, and he'll have to be a genius because he'll have to feed a family on a policeman's salary. And that was something that just really resonated with me. So when I did decide to leave, again, that was a part of the things that I looked at, and I'm enjoying where my career is at now. I loved my career back then. I like what I do now, and I'm blessed for it. So as I kind of reflect on that part of my career, my story, I feel like all of that is tied into marriage, fatherhood, faith, and all of it's connected. And that's the most important thing that I want to share on this podcast. So speaking of this podcast, now the biggest question a lot of people's asking, why in the world did you start a podcast? Well, when I started listening to other podcasts, I started listening to shows like The Sean Ryan Show, Joe Rogan, Ascension Presents, Charlie Kirk, and how they presented like solo reflections and how they interviewed guests. I really liked that type of format and how they could speak and discuss issues. And that's what I want to do here on this podcast. I want to create those meaningful conversations, and I want to tackle tough topics. And I want to focus on how can we move forward through those challenges. So, what are we even going to be talking about on this podcast? We're going to talk about faith and how it affects us in today's world. I want to talk about family and spouses, and I want to see how family is balanced between everyday life, how crazy life is, and where is our family at now to make sure we have a strong family bond. As stated, public safety is a big issue that I want to talk about. I want to bring community leaders in that are in the field, that are talking about today's issues such as community-related policing, court decisions, training methods, to get that real insight on people that are still active in the field. Another thing that we're going to talk about is going to talk about politics and leadership. Now, I know politics is a very touchy subject. However, my goal in it is to have open, honest dialogue and to discuss where can we find a common ground. So whatever side of the political aisle you own, I just want to have those open conversations and discuss the key differences on why we discuss that. I'm also going to talk about my culture, heritage, and why I think it impacts my worldview. I want to have tribal leaders on to discuss the process of going through federal recognition with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, with Congress, and I want to hear from community members of being MOWA Choctaw and really dive into what that means on being MOWA Choctaw. But now at the same time, it's not all going to be about serious stuff, just, faith, family, leadership. I want to talk about fun stuff too, because I think that's most important. I want to talk about things like entertainment, movies. I want to talk about sports teams. I want to talk about gaming. I want to talk about, what's the latest trend that you guys like, And I think it's important for me to keep this podcast balanced. That way we can talk about the serious stuff while at the same time have fun and kick back with the things that make life enjoyable. If we're going on vacation somewhere, I want to hear what's the best things you guys like to do when you're on vacation. You like to cruise. You like to ski. You like to mud ride. Those are the things I want to talk about besides having those conversations on some tough topics. So whether you guys enjoy those guest interviews, you want to hear those serious topics, or you're just here to have a good time, laugh, and cut up, this podcast is going to have something for everyone, and I know you guys are going to enjoy what we have to offer. With that being said, I think that's going to wrap today's episode. Guys, thank you so much for starting this journey with me, for learning about me, the MOWAKing, who I am, where I come from, and really why I decided to start this podcast. So, what is next? Subscribe to this podcast, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Prime, iHeart, Spotify. Make sure you guys subscribe, leave reviews, comments. Also, get on the MOWAKing Chronicles Facebook page. That way you can stay up to date on when the latest episode releases, when it drops, so you make sure to listen to it. That's also the best way to suggest new topics you would like me to discuss and potential guests that you would like me to interview. So once again, thank you. And until next time, stay strong, stay true, and let's keep moving forward.